Let me show you a clip.
7 feet, 270 pounds.
Through his legs, too.
Now, let me show you another clip.
MB thought he got fouled on the rip through. Kimbo lagged on the floor.
I have a simple question for you, and that is the question that we are going to explore in today's video. What is the difference between these two clips, other than the obvious of different players, different teams, different situations, a way better call on the second clip? What makes these plays really all that different from each other? Because when you break these clips down to the rawest possible interpretation, this is a 6'11" to 7 foot, 250 plus pound guy with an over 7 foot long wingspan with a 40-inch vertical, dribbling the ball from one end to the other and then finishing with an impressive dunk. That's what both of these clips are. Both of these players made pretty much the exact same play. Both of these plays were incredibly impressive feats done by incredibly freakish physical specimens. Giannis is a 6'11", 250 pound man with a 7'3" wingspan and a 40-inch vert. JaVale McGee is a 7 foot, 270 pound man with a 7'6" wingspan and a 43-inch vertical. So actually McGee, if we're looking at the pure numbers, is superior in the physical department. But Giannis is a two-time MVP and Defensive Player of the Year who over the last 4 seasons has averaged 28 points per game. Meanwhile, JaVale McGee over the last 4 seasons has averaged 8 points and doesn't even crack 20 minutes per game on average. So what is the difference between the two? Why is Giannis so much better than McGee when, if anything, McGee is more impressive physically? Well, skill, which to pretty much anyone is kind of obvious. I mean, yeah, Giannis is clearly far more skilled than JaVale McGee. That guy is a fucking meme. But the thing is, Giannis is often slapped with this label of unskilled.
You know, but I wish I could just run and with 7 feet and run and just dunk. Like, that takes no skill at all. I gotta actually learn how to play basketball and how to have skill, you know?
And this is not just a criticism by a petty-ass James Harden. It is a thing that is said by NBA fans, other players, and even coaches. Pretty much everybody. My question is, are they right? I don't feel like they are, but I wanted to look into it. So today I wanted to look into what makes a player quote-unquote skilled, and whether or not labeling someone like Giannis as unskilled is really fair. Welcome to NBA Deep Dive. Before we dive into the topic of this video, according to my analytics, about 50% of the people that watch these videos are not subscribed. So if you fall into that category and you enjoy this video, then please subscribe. Also drop a like on this video. It only takes 1 second and it makes a massive difference. There are a few avenues to tackle with this particular discussion, but there's one that I'd like to get out of the way from the jump. Everyone that has played or is playing in the NBA is more skilled at basketball than 99.999% of the human population. The level of talent required just to get a two-way contract in the NBA is unbelievable. The odds are the best basketball player that you have ever played with or against isn't even good enough to make the G League, let alone the NBA. And unless you are a D1 college player and among the best of them, or one of the highest touted prospects in high school, you are not better than any NBA player. Yes, I said any. JaVale McGee is a better dribbler than you. JJ Barea is a better post player than you. Ben Simmons is likely a better three-point shooter than you. Hell, even Shaq probably is. Here's a clip of Shaquille O'Neal playing basketball after his retirement, just screwing around.
Rebound, man. Steph Curry. Steph Curry.
Ben Simmons, if I had to guess, probably shoots around 50% in shoot-arounds from 3. I would consider myself a generally pretty good three-point shooter for an average basketball player, but if I shot 50 open threes and made 25 of them, that would be a pretty good day for me. If you're a good shooter at the YMCA, well, you are a trash shooter in the NBA. That's just the reality of the level of talent required to be an NBA player. As fun as it is to joke about being a better three-point shooter than Danny Green, most of y'all would have airballed this shot. I know I would've. The greatest example of this to me has to be Brian Scalabrine, who was more of a meme than an actual NBA player. He, over basically a decade, inspired a long trend of uncreative, boring, dry-ass jokes about how he is the greatest player of all time. Jokes that somehow people still make to this day. Like it's still 2012. Anyways, Brian was challenged to a one-on-one versus this guy named Jake Fay, who by all intents and purposes was a good high school player. 19 years old, 6'6", athletic, had a good-looking jumper, and a 34-year-old former NBA player that was so bad he became a meme whooped his fucking ass 11-0. And actually, I decided after watching this video that I would track down Jake Fay and actually get his opinion of what this game was like, and hopefully it would be an example of just how separate NBA players are from regular people. How good would you say you were at basketball back when you actually challenged Brian?
Yeah, so I was a senior in high school. I was committed to play at Fordham University, which is a Division I basketball school. Then I was like top 25 in New England, top 10 in Massachusetts. So I was pretty high up in the basketball world.
Okay.
The contest came around. Most
people would say that Scalabrine was on the lower end of NBA players, and he still smoked you. So just kind of what was it? Did you think that you had a real shot at beating him, or were you fully prepared to lose?
Fully prepared to lose, and just there for just the experience and the good time of it. I prepared myself to hit a few shots, and in the video they don't show, I had a few pull-up threes that rimmed out. They weren't great shots, but I would like to hit at least one or two. Getting shut out kind of hurt the pride a bit. But no, I was not prepared to beat him, even though it would have been fun to, and it would have been just all around a good day to play him one-on-one. But I was not going in there thinking I'm going to beat this NBA player, but I did think I was going to get a bucket or two to drop.
So just to be clear, you were a top 20 player in your state, and
still got killed by Scal. So
oh yeah.
Just for the people out there that aren't even like good in high school who think they're better than some NBA players, that's a good bit of a reality check. So I don't know the extent of your playing time. So where does Scal rank on the list of players you've faced overall? Like, is he the clear-cut number one, or have you maybe played
other NBA level guys?
I grew up playing with a lot of guys. Then in my college career, I played against a ton of guys. But I grew up playing with Wayne Selden, Shabazz Napier, Ricky Leto, Pat Connaughton, Nerlens Noel, Jake Layman, Mike Carter-Williams. These are all guys from my direct area that I grew up playing with. So I grew up playing with really good players.
But just let's say if you go pull up somewhere to hoop and you just the average, have you ever just showed up, not even at a high school level, just showed up at like the YMCA and played and met anyone even close to Scalabrine's level?
No chance. Yeah. Not a chance at all. I mean, guy averaged 20 points at USC.
All right. So since you did this interview, I'm giving you a chance to promote your film. So just do the best you can. I can't do it better than you can because you made it. So
gotcha. Yeah. So I'm the writer, director, and producer of the film The Process. It's streaming on Amazon and Tubi TV right now. So if you have an Amazon Prime, you can watch it for free. Tubi TV, you can watch it for free as well with some ads. It's a film about rappers in the inner city just trying to make it out, and what are their ambitions, and this underground rap scene that every inner city has. Everyone can relate to it. The music's great. It's an hour and 40 minutes. You can watch it. It's a raw take on what the rap world really is and what inner cities in America really like. So definitely check that out. It's a different type of film. There's not a lot of raw rap films out there right now. A lot of it wants to be Hollywood and all that, but this is just about local rappers trying to make it out of their own city. So definitely check that film out. It's on Prime. It's on Tubi TV.
And the link is going to be in the description for that. So if that interests you, then go check that out. And I could tell by watching your video, like talking shit to him, like I could see a bit of the filmmaker shit in there. So yeah,
definitely.
I appreciate it.
Absolutely, man. I appreciate you reaching out.
So just to tie a little bow on this overall idea, NBA players are really fucking good. So stop acting like you can beat them, because you probably can't. That point probably went on a little bit longer than necessary, but I felt it was important to establish. But anyways, what players are unskilled by NBA standards that are currently in the NBA? And not the obvious ones, not the fringe NBA players who honestly don't belong there in the first place, like let's say Cristiano Felicio or Luke Cornett or Cristiano Felicio. Let's not waste our time, or I don't know, maybe 4 years and $32 million on Cristiano Felicio. What are the good NBA players that are truly unskilled by an NBA standard? If they are unskilled, then what ends up keeping them in the league? Well, to me, this player that I'm talking about doesn't really exist. I made a video a bit ago on skill versus athleticism and size, with the general idea being what is more valuable towards being a good basketball player. Basketball is obviously a sport that requires quite a lot of skill, but at the same time, the average height in the NBA is 6'7" for a reason. The greatest NBA players of all time are typically a mix of athletic and physical anomalies combined with incredible basketball skill and IQ. Michael Jordan could jump and hang in the air for what felt like 10 minutes. MJ could jump in the air, you could read the Sunday paper from front to back, and Jordan would still be in air and then finish the layup. Or, you know, you could do something else entirely because no one has read a newspaper in a decade. But he also is probably the greatest mid-range shooter of all time. His touch on that J combined with his ability to create space. He was also an unbelievably intelligent defender who could tell what the offense was going to do 3 seconds before they did it. LeBron James is a 6'9", 250+ pound wall of muscle with a 40-inch vertical, and also, in my opinion, the highest basketball IQ of all time. You get the picture here. Both are important, but if you ask me which one's more important, I pick skill, no contest. Because for the most part, you can take a player who physically has no advantage, no big one anyways, and you give him unbelievable vision, a mid-range jump shot few players can rival, and an overall feel for the game that is impossible to match outside of a few select players. If you do that, you get Chris Paul. Where on the other hand, if you take a player who is 6'11", 270 with good athleticism and a solid wingspan and give him no NBA level skill whatsoever, well, in that case you get Kwame Brown. There are countless examples of players throughout history who are incredible athletes or really big, really tall, long, lanky, and it doesn't matter. Incredibly gifted athletes who do not possess the proper basketball skill fail over and over and over again. But on the other end of the spectrum, rarely is it the case that an incredibly skilled player fails because of physical limitations. Unless, of course, that incredibly skilled player is like 5'2". If you are 5'8", you can average almost 30 points per game and lead your team to the top seed in the conference if you have the skill. If you are the second slowest human being on earth, second to me, you can still be a top 10 player in the NBA if your scoring and passing talent allows it. You can lead the league in scoring 4 times at 6'1" if you have some of the best handle of all time. Man, this green screen shit is cool. Look, now I'm in a snowstorm. Now I am at my house in Minecraft. Yes, it is really cool. Thank you. It's better than yours. Now Karl Malone is behind me. I'd be worried about what he's gonna do to me back there, but luckily I am too old for him. Now, wait a minute. Is that... I caught it. If you're looking for an example of a good NBA player who just isn't skilled in the history of the league, but especially in recent years, it's probably not going to happen, especially really good players. Even Shaq, who is by far and away the least skilled player in my top 20 players of all time, is still very skilled. The touch he had combined with some solid post moves and good vision as a big man, as well as good defensive instincts when he didn't get too big for that to not matter, to say Shaq is unskilled would be a mistake. Really, it's better to say that Shaq benefited from physical advantages, but to say that he's not skilled just because of that is not true. And that's my general mindset with a lot of players who get labels similar to Shaq. But this is just my take on the matter. I wanted to actually sit down with somebody that I believed knew more than me, someone you guys are probably all subscribed to, and that is Coach Nick over at B-Ball Breakdown. What are some players in the NBA that you could point to that you would say would fall under the umbrella of unskilled?
You know, there are guys who I've been, critical of for a long time in the past. It's no secret, like guys like Russell Westbrook, Giannis, I think is a skill deficit. You brought Simmons could probably be considered that way to some degree for shooting specifically. So usually it's, one glaring weakness.
So here it is clear we had a bit of a difference of an opinion because I think it's kind of ridiculous to say that Giannis is not unskilled. So I kind of asked him for more context to his opinion and he clarified. I mean, it's fair to criticize the level of skill of those guys, but I feel like just using the blanket term unskilled is the issue that I have.
Okay. I can see that. Certainly like, let's say for Giannis, if we're talking, we can't say he's unskilled.
Really, it seemed, and I'm just saying this rather than showing it because the coach talked a lot, it seemed like he was more like Giannis and Westbrook and Ben Simmons are lacking in some areas of skill, and that's an area of criticism for him, but he's not saying those players are unskilled. At least that's how I interpreted it. Another important talking point that I wanted to go over with Coach Nick was the role of shooting in this general trend of calling players unskilled. What does the word skill mean to you in an NBA sense?
It's a good question, and skill has a lot of facets to it. So you're talking about, I mean, people argue that hustle is a skill. But I suppose the real obvious ones tend to be, dribbling, passing, shooting. I would say probably shooting the top.
To me, and I think to most NBA fans and even NBA players and coaches, first thing I think of when I think of a skill is shooting the basketball. Look at the players Coach Nick pointed to as some examples of unskilled players. What do they all have in common? They can't shoot worth a damn. Giannis, Ben Simmons, and Russell Westbrook. Those guys are Brick City. Do you get it? It's good. It's a city made out of bricks. You get it. But shooting, and specifically this era of shooting being so damn important, I think has shaped this framing of players who can't shoot as unskilled. Way back, 2 years ago, I made a video on the negative side of the three-point era. Now, please don't actually go and watch that video. It's not necessarily a bad video, but I looked like this. Seriously, dude, what the fuck? But in that video, I was complaining about how many people acted like shooting was the end-all be-all of a player's talent. Like, I swear to God, there are genuinely some people out there who probably think that Seth Curry is better than Ben Simmons simply because Seth can shoot. Is it a problem that Ben Simmons cannot shoot? Obviously, you bet your ass it is. But to take him not being able to shoot and just bring that to the overall claim that he is unskilled despite the fact that he's one of the smartest defenders in the NBA and one of the best playmakers in the NBA, I think is rather silly. But as I said to Coach Nick, I also feel the three-point shooting era is a big part of the whole 90s players were plumbers narrative that you see people saying, which for the most part is ironic, but sadly not entirely. Like, there are people who view players who can't shoot threes as inherently bad. Could be perfect otherwise, but if they ain't shooting a three, then what's the point of them? So I think shooting being as important as it is today, more than it has ever been throughout league history, has led to people labeling players as unskilled more often than I think they probably did back then. Granted, this could be a recency bias, being that the evolution of shooting pretty much happened right as I became an NBA fan. Like, I was right there when it started. But then I brought up that JaVale McGee comparison that I made at the start of this video. What is the difference between McGee and Giannis? Because when you look at their physicals, they're both around the same weight. McGee actually beats him in length and height, and they both have similar verticals. Why is it that there's that much of a difference between those two players other than skill? I mean,
right. Giannis is a better ball handler, right? I mean, if we want to really break it down specifically, because, right, I there's a bit of a, it's weird. When you watch JaVale and you interact with JaVale and his mindset, right? Like, he's just not that guy. He'll never be that guy who's going to dominate the ball anyway.
Thing.
So Coach Nick actually brought up an interesting point here, which made me rethink some of my thoughts, because that's how thinking works. He brought up that basically, while in my head you can simply break down a player into skill and then the physical attributes that these players have, there is also kind of a third thing, which is your mental, like what's going on in your head. Now, I don't mean, and I don't think Coach Nick meant basketball IQ. I think that fits into the category of skill rather easily, but as cliche as it is, and as often overblown as it is, killer mentality is a thing, like a pretty big thing. I can say personally, I am a bigger guy. I am 6'3", 220, and generally speaking, when I am playing pickup, I tend to be the big man because I tend to be the biggest guy on the court. Not all the time, but I'd say 80% of the time. But if I'm being honest, I'm not a very good big man because I'm not good at being physical and bumping into people and shit. Despite my physical advantage, I don't really have the mentality to take advantage of it. I don't have the I'm bigger than you, so get out of my way type of mentality. So that's a thing. and that affects the difference between McGee and Giannis. Basically, the point I'm getting at is that I'm a bitch. So this is another factor worth considering when actually dissecting talent at its basic level. But I do have to question, is the mentality stuff, like the killer mentality, is that also not partially a skill? Because Coach Nick said this when I asked him what skill was to him.
It's a good question, and skill has a lot of facets to it. So you're talking about, people argue that hustle is a skill.
But is hustle not an extension of mentality? And if hustle is a skill connected to mentality, then is mentality not a skill? Like, you need to have the right mentality to be a hustle player. Otherwise, every player would be a hustle player. So if hustle is a skill, then so is mentality. But this, to me, is a pretty clear gray area because personally, to me, I'd put mentality into a third camp rather than making it an extension of skill. But I made a poll about it on Twitter, and it seemed the majority opinion was that yes, it was a skill. And I also got a reply that made me think. From Jacob is unemployed, which technically same. You can train to have a certain mindset, so a mindset is a skill, which sounds nice, but then when you actually think about it, you can also train to get stronger, train to get your vertical higher, and I would not consider those skills just athletic and physical attributes that you achieved through working out. So to me, overall, I think I'd label this as a gray area. I can't confidently put this into the skill category, definitely not in the physical category. I kind of feel like it's a third thing. Another interesting point that Coach Nick brought up is that if McGee's potential was realized early, maybe he could have done something similar to Giannis, but he was just not forced in the direction of developing those skills like Giannis was.
Now, he also got into this role, like, could JaVale have, in his third year, had they told JaVale, you know what, we want you to be a point guard? Like, could he have done it? I don't know. It's a kind of a provocative question, but I wonder, because JaVale really is, as far as talent goes, one of the most talented players in the league if you ever could kind of put it all together physically. So I wonder. It's an interesting question.
And this kind of brings up another interesting point from my skill versus athleticism video, which this video is really just a bigger version of at this point. Giannis, when he came into the league, was a very raw prospect, clearly a project player. To start his career, his ball handling was not good, and his body, while long and athletic, was just really weak. Giannis was listed at 190 when he was drafted, which for someone 6'10" is really fucking low. Like, that's less than me, which is a little sad on my part, but really a bigger example of just how damn skinny Giannis was. Today, he is listed at 242 pounds, so he put on a full 52 pounds, and once he did that, his need for a deep bag and incredible skill on the perimeter wasn't nearly as high. Like, if you want to criticize Shaq for not being all that skilled, well, like, do you want a 7'1", 320-pound man to be shooting step-back threes, pulling up from mid-range, maybe crossing people over? No, Shaq took his very absurd physical gifts and developed his skills to best maximize his size. Like I said earlier, Shaq was very skilled in the post. Of course, being massive sure as hell helped, but he had to develop the post game to reach that level. Kevin Duckworth was a 7-foot, nearly 300-pound guy, and while he was a good player in his own right and an all-star, he never touched Shaq's level. Thomas Hamilton was 7'2", 330. And, well, this is what his basketball reference page looks like. If all it took for Shaq to be the player he was being as big as he was, well, we would have seen more than one Shaq. Same goes for Giannis. Once Giannis was that big, he thought, why develop my jumper when nobody can stop me if I drive to the basket every single time? And his game was developed that way as a result. Giannis took the physical advantages that he had and developed his game around it. Harden said in his petty-ass interview that all Giannis has to do every possession is run to the basket and dunk, which is not true, but if it was, then why wouldn't he do that? If you could cater your game around your physical attributes to the point where you could just dunk it every time, then do that. Why would you work on a step back jump shot when you can just dunk it every time? James Harden didn't get these physical gifts, so as a result, he worked more on the skill areas of his game. In basketball and in life, it is important to learn how to play the cards you are dealt. Giannis got gifted 6'11" with a long wingspan and a 40-inch vertical. Harden got 6'5" with big-ass muscles and also a relatively high vertical jump, which, by the way, is still a complete physical anomaly. Both of these players catered their games to the cards that they were dealt. So to criticize Giannis for not having a step-back three-pointer like James Harden does is rather silly to me. Now that's not to say that Giannis does not deserve criticism for his level of skill. I'm sure as hell not saying that Giannis is a beacon of skill in the NBA. He is far from it. I just hate the overarching term of unskilled because it feels incredibly dismissive to the work and the talent of Giannis Antetokounmpo. I just hate the overall blanket statement of unskilled because you simply cannot be as good as Giannis Antetokounmpo or Shaq or Ben Simmons or Russell Westbrook while not being skilled. It bothers me when that blanket term is used on players that don't deserve it. Cristiano Felicio is unskilled. Giannis is skilled. Really, that's the main point of this video. I just want to be mean to Cristiano Felicio. Please get this guy off of my team. Instead of saying that Giannis is unskilled, say that he has skills that he needs to work on, specifically shooting, that he isn't really good at right now. Unskilled makes him sound like he's just some dumb jock physical freak that dunks with no thought or talent, just a monster that puts a ball in a basket. And that's incredibly dismissive to the talent of Giannis as well as the work that he put in to become the player he is today. Same goes for all the other examples mentioned previous. I want to give a big shout out to both Coach Nick as well as Jake Fay for appearing in this video. Both of their links are going to be in the description. Watch Jake Fay's film and go subscribe to Coach Nick's channel. I'm going to be posting videos like this NBA deep dive once every week on every Friday, and I'm going to be posting them one day early over on my Patreon, which is obviously on Thursday. So if you'd be interested in getting this video early every week, then go support me over on Patreon. Every dollar counts and it is much appreciated. But if you don't want to do that, which is perfectly fine, then a like and subscription also does just fine. But yeah, that's my thoughts on skill in the NBA. Don't make fun of this leather jacket. I'm trying to look like Jeremy Johns. That is the end of this video. Please be sure to like and subscribe for more NBA content like this, and cue the outro music.